For the second time today, welcome to the OCR Reports presentation of the DEKA FIT season opener. Coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee. This is race 1 of 9 in the 2024 schedule, and we've got a little something different compared to our broadcast this morning. Some team action in store in this exciting team relay-ish format that we've got in store. We have both winners from the early competition this morning will be on course. We've got some other competitors that we saw earlier and some fresh legs ready to mix it up as well. I am Xander Keene, joined by Luke Halterman, and should be an exciting race. We've got some solid talent in the men's, co-ed, and women's fields. Again, some people that have already raced this morning, some others, new combinations of athletes trying to stamp their qualification or at least put a good time on the board. So excited to see what's in store here in this team competition.
Absolutely. If you have never seen a DEKA FIT relay race, hold on to your seats because it is going to be fast. And Yancey said it best at the DEKA FIT World Championships. It's like when roller derby meets NASCAR, meets everything in between. People are going to be shoveling for position. It's going to be quick out of the stations, quick on the runs, because here's the thing. You could split it up however you want, unless the first run and the last run, you have to stick together for your teammate. But other than that, you don't have to run the full 500 meters. You can run 250 of it. You don't have to do the full 25 cals on the bike. You could do 12 and a half. You could do 24, and the other teammate could do 1. It's all based off strategy coming into this. One team could be particular faster than the others as far as footwork, but they might not be best on the stations. Doesn't mean anything when it comes to the strategy between the two teams. So this is where it's going to get very exciting. It's going to be fast. If you blink, you're going to miss it. And like you mentioned as well, too, I'm excited that we got both of the winners of the race competing in this, so we can actually see them in a team event as well, too. And then like the fresh legs you mentioned, racing once or even twice and then trying to compete again on the team, going all out. This is full anaerobic the whole time. Man, that lactic buildup in your legs. And Xander, I know you know it because we're runners and we can feel this and we know what they're going through. But people at home, if you don't know what that feels like, it just feels like pure death just the whole time. And it's just holding on to a horse that does not want to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the format. So if this is your first time checking out the DEKA FIT relay setup, it's the same 500-meter runs and 10 stations that you know and love from DEKA FIT. But as you mentioned, Luke, you can split it up however you want. The only stipulation, the first run and the 10th run, you have to do together. Mm-hmm. Other than that, sometimes we've seen, one teammate does the other 4,000 meters of running and the other teammate does all the station work. Mm-hmm. Some split it up. What's interesting to me is you have different combinations of skill sets all competing on the same course at the same time. In some cases, you might have sort of two all-around DEKA athletes that'll split up the work and just do everything faster. Or you have a run specialist and a station specialist. And then, of course, we're going to get to see a couple of strong combinations of athletes who competed earlier. As we mentioned in the co-ed field, it'll be Morgan Schulz, our women's winner today, with Alexander Golick competing in co-ed. And then a team I'm really excited to see, Colin Stiefer and Kevin Gregory. Mm-hmm. Talk about two guys that can hammer the stations. Colin, of course, brings the running ability as well, having won this morning. But we're going to get to see the Bubbles assault bike in full display in Zone 7 in that men's field. And yeah, it's faster. DEKA FIT is already in this hybrid space. It's already on the faster, more intense end of the spectrum. You throw teams into the mix when, yes, you do get breaks at some point, but a break in an event this short means that when you're going even harder.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You brought up the team, Bubbles, and of course, Colin Stiefer. Bubbles before has always been the station workhorse, right? He's always had a runner who has done well, and he's always boded well from it as well, too, right? He's podiumed and he's won some world championships doing so. Colin is also a station guy, so it'll be interesting to see what type of strategy these two end up doing. Does Colin take some work off? Does Kevin run? I don't know, because you have another team that's going to be breathing down their neck, I think personally, other than Stetson Clement and Matt Kay, Taylor Haney and Dustin Needham. Watch out for those two because both of them can fly when it comes to running. Even though Colin and Kevin might have them on the stations, I think they're going to make up the room when it comes to the runs. And then another team, of course, I see on there, Mark Steeds and Zachary Tate. Zach Tate was a teammate of Bubbles at the World Championship, so I'm sure Mark is a great competitor as well. So station work isn't going to be the only reason if Bubbles and Colin win today. They're going to have to bring it on the racetrack as well.
Yeah, then over on the co-ed side, we mentioned Morgan Scholes, today's women's winner, Alexander Golick, who competed. I believe he was in the second heat of the elite men's race. You've got a couple of other solid competitors in Joy and Bill Brumbach, who will be going after it, as well as Jessica and Jason Cox. Don't know too much about some of the other athletes in that field. And then in the women's relay, and we'll see if they send off all the teams at the same time. If they do, Karen Guidry and Amber Tate, they've competed together several times. They finished third place in the women's division at DEKA FIT World Championships last year. They also had the third fastest women's team time, so they can certainly bring it. Maybe they're not going to be up there with Colin and Kevin, but certainly if this is a mixed field overall, they'll be in the mix in terms of overall performance, and we're excited to see what they'll be able to do against, like we saw sort of in the women's elite field this morning, maybe some combinations that we haven't seen quite as much at the elite level, but unknown athletes can throw a wrench in things and mix it up, and we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, absolutely. With the women's field, you mentioned Karen Guidry and Amber Tate. They haven't competed today, from my understanding, right? So they have fresh legs like no other. You're the third best team in the world coming in with fresh legs. It's safe to say that you could put your money that they're going to win this race today. But we don't know too much about maybe the other female teams. So you don't know if they competed today already as well. So that's what always makes it exciting. What I love most about, you have the male and the females. What's great about it is they use the same standard weights as you would in a typical race, right? Women 40-pound dumbbells, 40 or over the bar, all that type of stuff. Co-ed is where the strategy plays a little bit more, because do you play the female into a little bit more strength-based things because it's lighter weight, such as Morgan Schultz is a great example. Very strong competitor, much like her running. I'm sure Alex Golick is just as strong as well. But does she push the tank a little bit more on the resistance because it's easier for her to do so opposed to Alex doing it? That's always a good strategy. Bill and Joe Brumbach, when they race, they've podiumed co-ed before. I'm sure they're coming into this knowing exactly what they're going to do. They've planned this out. So it'll be interesting to see what strengths the male and female teams tend to go with when it comes to the stations.
And it's interesting because over the course of the year, a lot of times you'll see the same group of athletes, but competing in different combinations because, trying to compete together to then potentially qualify for Worlds. As we saw last year, Kevin Gregory qualified about 6 or 7 different times at least with different partners. And so it's interesting when you've got those different skill sets. On the other side, you have a pairing like Bill and Joy Brumbach, a married couple. They're going to race together, and they obviously can work on their strategy whenever they want versus teammates, who are just coming in and meeting here at the event and maybe not able to train together quite as much. So that difference in style and something that for some of these teams, it may be figuring out the best strategy as the race unfolds. And you understand, if someone raced this morning, maybe they're a little more compromised and they can't give it quite as much on the stations as a fresh athlete or whatever the combination ends up being. Off screen, I can see, I believe, Yancey giving a final briefing to the team competitors here as we're going to get set to go in about 5 minutes or so. There it is. As you see Yancey letting everyone know what's going on here.
Yeah, the briefing is always pretty important just to make sure you know exactly what you're doing. You're standing out of the way. The relay exchange zone is such a hot spot. It's off to the side in a cone where the 250 meters meets. But man, if you are just walking into the path of someone who's going all out on the 200 meters, let alone the size of a specimen like Colin or Kevin, you're going to get mowed over. And so it's best to, obviously, he's telling you to stay off to the side. He's making sure everyone understands the rules, making sure you're holding the baton that has the chip, and making sure probably teams are running together on the last lap together, making sure everyone's just doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah, because the last thing you want is, a competitive race to be decided because someone makes like a procedural mistake, right? Standing in the wrong spot or not running a lap together or not correctly handing over the timing chip. Again, you have to hand over the baton and the timing chip if you're going to trade off on the run. In the stations, you can just split it up however you want, but most importantly, you have to use the same machine or zone or area, right? You can't use two different bikes. You've just got to trade off on the same one. So again,
Correct.
it's going to be interesting because you've got, in the same competition, whether it's the men's field, the women's field, or co-ed, you might have some teams where one person does almost, if not all, of the station work. Other teams, it might be a 500 or a 250 meter row, and then immediately for another 250. And what ends up being faster is going to be interesting because you sort of, the trade-off, right, is if one person does the entire station, you don't have any transition time. However, if you trade off at some point, well, you can go a little bit harder, and maybe it makes up for it because everyone gets a little bit of a rest instead of just one person hammering the station.
Absolutely. So we saw this at the World Championships last year. David Magida and Eric Williams, when they teamed up together, they split everything, even the assault bike. So that second, but yet they were still the fastest, maybe behind Bubbles, of course, but they were still just as fast, if not maybe 1 or 2 seconds. But the energy you save by doing that is huge, and it matters in races such as this, where it comes down to seconds, not so much tens of seconds or minutes. It comes down to seconds. And so it does matter. And that's why I'm very intrigued to see how Colin and Kevin break this up, because you never see Kevin run, but does he do it to maybe give Colin some breather or vice versa? I'll be interested to see how teams break this up, of course. It's always fun to watch the strategies.
Yeah, and regardless of how they break it up, it's going to lead to a faster time than DEKA FIT, just because to an extent you're sharing the workload. The records, at least the fastest times last year, David Magida and Eric Williams that you talked about, a 24:42 for a combined time. And I mean, if you think about that, that includes whether or not you break it up. That's 5,000 meters of running. You think about a 5K time, add on top of that 10 different stations, and to finish in 24:42 is incredible. The co-ed time, of course, Meg Jacoby and Rich Ryan, not your average co-ed competitors, but they're under 26 in terms of the fastest time. And the fastest women's time is under 30 minutes. So there's, a lot of play here. Again, like we saw, in the first race, it's early in the season. Who knows if a record is in play, but it's going to be an intense, fast competition with a lot of moving parts, more traffic on the course compared to, this morning's event as well. So just a lot of dynamics in play. I've raced in an age group heated at DEKA FIT later on in the afternoon after one of our broadcasts, and there's just more going on because there's more people. So, in team competition, you're trying to just stay on point and make sure that you transition at the right places. It requires a lot of focus, especially with how hard you're going.
Yeah, and that's another thing that happens during the race. You're coming in with a strategy. You get punched in the mouth, something happens, your heart rate's through the roof more than you wanted to. You tell your teammate, hey, I can't maintain the speed on this lap, or hey, I can't hit the assault bike. My quads are just smoked right now. So you have to change strategy mid-race as well too. And maybe your teammate ends up taking more of a workload than you're used to. So, okay, so there's Austin Tenosov and Paul Fitzpatrick. I figured they were racing. I didn't see them on the list. That's a team that will definitely match Colin and them as well. They're always in the run. Okay, so we're trying to get some faces here. I see Needham, but of course he's with Taylor. There's Zach Tate. I think I saw Dustin Rudder as well, one of our rabbits earlier today.
First wave, all guys. You guys will be the first wave. All you guys. We will probably go in about 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay. Well, sorry.
So it does look like they're getting ready to send the men's teams out first. We weren't 100% sure how that was going to work, just depending on the field size. So we will, at least to an extent, have a separated race. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. I like that it's separated, just so we can see a little bit more of the space, because obviously if one camera follows the male team, obviously we won't see too much about co-ed or female. So this will be good for us and viewers at home.
And here's a look at some of the other teams. I see Bill and Joy Brumbach there in the background. And I think, Luke, what's exciting about this, right? This morning, thinking back to we sort of knew what to expect going in, right? We had an idea that Joseph Cotto and Colin Stiefer were going to probably leave the charge up front. We expected Derek York to take it out hot. He did. Robert Killian stuck his nose in it. The outcome was maybe a little bit surprising. We saw Austin Tennelshoff do a great job of coming back into it. But in terms of like how the race played out, and on the women's side as well, where Morgan Schulz, the world champion, was sort of a cut above Samantha Wood, having some experience, was a clear second place. But here, with teams and a lot of new athletes racing with each other, it's a lot more open of like, hey, we really don't have much of an idea of what we're going to see outside of, yes, there's a few people we know what they can do individually, but in a team competition, anything can happen.
Absolutely. And you see right there in the white headband, Derek York is running co-ed, and his teammate, I know she competed with Colin Stiefer at High Rocks. I apologize on the name. Seeing if I can look it up real quick, but that's going to be a team to look out for in the co-ed division, the match with Morgan Schulz and Alex Golick for sure.
And there's Kevin Gregory, who we saw in the first wave of the men's lead field this morning. Of course, DEKA Strong world champion, so he will be doing some work on the stations.
Yeah, this should make for an exciting race. So I assume the men will go first based off, I guess, who you see in the list that we have. What's your podium pick?
It's hard to bet against this morning's winner and then a world champion in one of the DEKA events. I have to think that if Colin and Kevin are racing together, then they'll take it. Outside of that, though, I think there's a couple of teams that could mix it up in there. Dustin Needham is the guy that raced this morning, and he's got a talented partner as well. So, yeah, I think outside of Colin and Kevin, it's a little more wide open for me.
Yeah, my pick now, knowing Austin and Paul are competing, they just work well together. They know how to function together. I'm sure they've seen it all, that if something happens strategy-wise, like they know exactly what they're going to, and they're going to execute it. I got them to win, to upset over Colin and Kevin. But I have Colin and Kevin right there in second place. It's going to come down to the burpees. And third, Taylor and Dustin, hard to go against them as well, too. So this top three, and let alone that Matt Kay and Stetson as well, it looks like Killian is maybe competing. Oh, man.
Yeah, we might have had a few.
Tough, man.
Yeah, we might have had a few late registrations based on the initial start list that we got. So that's all the more exciting, right? You've got, and I feel like maybe just with the excitement of a DEKA FIT event, you're around the venue all morning. Maybe you didn't think you were going to compete, but you get second thoughts and you realize, hey, you know what? Let's give it a go. And maybe
you can sign up. Yep,
because there's jumping in here. Yeah,
I think Chaz Hatton and Joshua Gonzalez is probably going to team up together. Oh, man, that's a stud team as well. Oh, I'm still going to go with my prediction. I think Paul and Austin win. Anybody else, though, I don't know. It's seriously, throw the flag on that one. I'm not sure. Okay, well, since we got time, too, who do you got for co-ed then?
If Morgan and Alexander Golick are going to race together, again, you've got the female champion and someone who mixed it up in the elite field in the second wave this morning. It's hard to go against them. Outside of that, don't know a ton about a lot of the other competitors in terms of DEKA FIT, but Bill and Joy Brumbach, again, having the advantage of training together and that experience, obviously, as a married couple, I think they have a good chance. But maybe there's some other people that competed this morning that are teaming up that we're not quite sure about yet. So it'll be exciting to see what that looks like when they all take the start line.
Yeah, I think I like the prediction of Morgan and Golick taking it, of course. Good experience there. And Morgan Schulz is I think she's a little fired up from this morning's race. She said she was disappointed in her time. So I know she's going to bring the heat on that. But now knowing Derek York, and he's teamed, it looked like Melody Braun. And when she teamed up with Colin Stiefer not too long ago at High Rocks, she kept up with him. So, she's a runner. So, and these are two runners. So that's going to be interesting. They're definitely going to be the ones threats to take around that first. And then, of course, the Brumbach duo, they always seem to be on the podium, so I got them rounding out third for the co-ed. Who you got for female?
I mean, I think Amber Tate and Karen Guidry, who we see here, like, they have that experience. They were a world champion. The only world championship caliber combination that we've seen in this field, just in terms of like competing together at the elite level. So, yeah, I think they're probably the odds-on favorite on the female side. But you never know. Again, we saw a lot of athletes come in and mix it up in the female open this morning, or in the female elite, I should say. But I think the two of them have a good shot of not only winning but putting a dent in some of the top co-ed times as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that choice for being first place. I think it's hard to bet against someone who's already podiumed the world championship as a team. So they work well together and they complement each other. But as far as the other female teams, I would say, again, that's up for grabs. I like the idea of our fellow Rabbit, who probably Rabbit earlier today, and Shan's wife, and I apologize, I forgot your name. Her and her daughter, they could throw down a pretty good time. So I'm pretty Candace. Yeah, I can't wait to see how they compete. So yeah, okay. So there is Chaz.
You could get over the walls, like.
So we've got our men's teams taking the start line now.
Okay, so there's Zach Tate off to the right.
Top of the head. Or you're chilling.
Oh, this is going to be a fun race, man. This is going to be good. This is a good field right here.
And there's Kevin. I didn't see him at first, but Kevin Gregory has worked his way in.
Oh, Colin's repping the underdog gear. I wonder if Taylor's okay with that. I don't know.
So at this point, we have almost.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we have almost the entirety of the first wave of the men's field from this morning competing in this field right now in some capacity. So that what was already going to be an exciting race is just ratcheted up that much more because of how many other strong teams there are on the field, let alone a few wild cards coming in with fresher legs.
I agree. Yeah, I believe this strategy, this is what's going to happen. Austin and Paul are going to get in first. Austin's going to knock out these 30, and then Paul is the runner out of the two. Austin usually takes on the bulk of the stations, if not the whole stations. And, just watch them kind of separate. And I feel like Colin and Kevin are going to do the same strategy. But I don't know. I don't know if Kevin says he wants to run or not. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, though. Because Colin, he proved it with his 5K time today. He had the fastest 5K time today, or right behind Derek. But he's been working on his running, such he said, and he says he no longer wants to just be perceived as someone who's good at the stations. And I think he's going to bring some fast 500-meter splits.
Yeah, for all we know, this could end up being a 10 by 500 workout with a little bit of station work for Colin, but remains to be seen what that looks like. That's quite a way to work on your running, especially when you've already got one race in your legs. But yeah, Austin Tenelshoff, you see there in the all black, kind of in the front, one of the taller athletes. He was 11th, I believe, in both DEKA Strong and DEKA Mile at World Championships last year. So someone that certainly comes in, from the station end of things, teaming up, as you mentioned, that classic kind of runner station combination. You can see just based on the frames of those two athletes. But yeah, there's a lot of top competitors here in this field, and I'm excited to see what happens once we get underway.
Yeah, much like Derek at the beginning of the men's start race, Taylor and Dustin are going to take it out hot right here. I think they're going to be the first group in. And the other teams aren't going to be far behind, maybe a second or two. But I think Taylor and Dustin are going to use their footwork and try to be the first team in.
So we should be just moments away from getting underway again. Our men's elite competitors have been called to the start line and just about ready to go.
that jersey. Look at that jersey all suited up.
Chan pointed it out, the underdog jersey. Is Colin an official getting sponsored now by Kevin? Uh-oh. Is Taylor going to rip it off his back while he runs? I don't know. This should be exciting. Seems like maybe they're waiting for a few of the open heats beforehand just to clear a few of the stations because, I mean, this race is going to be over in less than 30 minutes for sure. So they just probably want to make sure there are plenty of gap in between so there's no huge controversy.
Yes. Especially, yeah, given, you want to make sure there's as much traffic cleared as possible, especially on the stations, but even on the run too, right? Like, these athletes are going to be absolutely moving. And, there's enough space when it's, just the elite field. Obviously, the elite men take off and there's no one else on course to start with. And even when the elite women are running, there's not that much traffic. But once you get to later in the day, there is a lot more going on. So, yeah, it makes sense to just make sure that there's going to be enough breathing room, especially early on in the race when things are more bunched up. You don't want, there to be other people on the lunges and whatnot as you've got, 10 or 12 guys just coming and flying here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one thing when it's just like 10 or 12. Now you're looking at 20 or 24 going all out. That's a little scary thing. Definitely if you're in the open heat and you're there just to compete and have a good time and finish and accomplish and maybe not just as fast, don't take the inside lane, whatever you do. You might get bumped around a bit. Well, do we see a world record at all, Xander? Do we see anybody testing Eric? And is it Eric and Makita that hold the world record?
Eric and Makita, yeah, okay. Under 25 minutes. They were 24:42 last year. I don't know. Wow. It's early in the season. I think, if you would ask me 20 minutes ago before we really fully grasped who all was racing, I would have said probably not. We'll see, but there's enough, there's enough juice in this field now that they should be able to push each other pretty hard, and we'll just see what that time looks like a bit later on in the race.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's definitely competitive. I don't think we see a world record, but I do see a low 25 winning time.
Yeah, I think in an event, where seconds matter, especially in a team format, David and Eric, again, training together in DC, they obviously worked on their strategy going in, knowing exactly what they were going to do. And, not to take anything away from some of these athletes, but, when you haven't teamed up as much, or again, maybe you live in different places and you're coming together for this event, you're just not going to have that down. And even if that's, a second and a half on every transition, well, that adds up to, 30 plus seconds over a course of a race.
You got some little singing. So the current record for the year so far over in Spain for the men, it looks like 27:37. I think it's safe to say that time will get beat by multiple teams. I honestly think all podium teams, if not the top 5, will go 26. At least 26.
Yeah, last year at World Championships, the top 6 teams were all under 27 minutes, including Paul Fitzpatrick and Austin Tendelshoff, who ran 26:38 last year. So they're one group that does have that experience competing together. And again, maybe they'll use the same strategy. We expect Paul to do the lion's share of the running here. So we're getting close.
Yeah, they're about mid-26 at their best. I would just assume training has been going well. They've been doing much better. Austin performed great today in the elite race, getting 4th place. So I do feel like there's some improvement on that. And I like I said, I'm going to call it. I think low 25s is what wins it. And then anything after that is just icing on the cake.
And even if it's as simple as, if you've got a team and one athlete is a notably stronger runner, well, any improvement that the other teammate makes in the run is going to pay off, especially in those first and 10th runs. Even if it's an extra,
Absolutely.
5 seconds on a 500-meter run times 2, I mean, that's a little bit of something. And then maybe just if you improve your running capacity, you're then less compromised throughout the course of the race, or when you get compromised, you've raised your ceiling and floor. So that could pay off, again, with them already having put down a solid time, sub 27, well under 27 minutes. We'll see what's in store.
And this is where I think Austin and Paul get Colin and Kevin. Of course, Kevin's going to be the best on the bike. No one's going to touch him on that. I think Colin and Kevin pull away, but I think Paul and Austin are just fast enough. That last run, like you mentioned, if Kevin's doing all the stations, he's going to have to run with Colin, or Colin's going to have to run with Kevin. Austin and Paul, I think, are just slightly faster, and that's where I think they make their move at the end after the sled push and pull, and they pull away just having enough burpee lead before the burpee start. But who knows? Maybe Bubbles is the fastest 500-meter guy out there right now. We don't know. He could have been saving it for this relay race the whole time. He's got us all fooled. I would love to see it.
So for context this morning, both Paul Fitzpatrick and Austin Tennelshoff were in the 19s in terms of their 5K split during DEKA Fit, and Colin, of course, with an 18:16. Now, granted, it's hard. That's not going to directly translate, because in this case, if Paul's doing all of the running and less of the station work, then he should be able to run faster. But Colin, it just, I think, goes to show you the improvement that Colin has made in his own running, that he was able to essentially match Joseph Cotto in the run, and just, not too far behind Derek York, who had the fastest 5K split. So, yeah, this is going to be fascinating, because rather than the individual all-around competition, now we've got a lot of the same athletes plus some others competing in a way that best suits their individual skill sets within the team format. And so here we go. We're just a few seconds away, and now we are off here in our elite men's heat in DEKA Fit Teams Knoxville.
All right, here we go. Coming out of the chute fast, Taylor and Dustin right in the lead, just like I predicted. I think they're able to hold on to that as well, too. They're just fast guys. Oh, see, one of those open waivers just holding the inside lane. I imagine they're getting a big gush of wind going past them right now.
Yeah, especially slapping on that concrete. You've got a lot of carbon-plated shoes out there. There is a lot of humanity moving at a fast pace in this opening lap.
Absolutely. There might be a male team that surprises us and makes a name for themselves, such as this gentleman in the black shirt. I'm not sure exactly who this gentleman is, but clearly fast enough to be right there with Needham, so he's a fast guy. And whoever his teammate is right behind him. Looks like he's trying to jostle for position. There's Taylor right behind him, Paul.
Yeah, it's interesting this morning, because we saw right from the beginning, we saw Kevin, running his own race. He didn't get caught up in sort of the pack taking off early. But in a team format like this, regardless of how he and Colin split it up, Kevin's going to have to sell out. And you can see him, hanging onto that pack on this first run. He's probably running harder relative to his top speed than most of these other athletes, but it should pay off for him, because, Colin presumably will take a lot of the running later on.
Right. Yeah, this is when, much like the individual race, the first few stations, everyone's going to be combined together. That's going to be exactly for the team. 4 through 6, it kind of spreads out a little bit. Not in the team format. You're still going to be bunched together. Teams come down on the last few stations. I don't want to say the over the walls. I could be wrong, but as much as the sled. So we won't get much of who we think podium is until later in this race.
Especially knowing how much of a game changer the assault bike can be when you have a Kevin Gregory who can sell out knowing he doesn't have to run, as you see Colin taking off now, trying to hunt down the rest of the field.
Oh,
interesting.
Austin's
so
running.
Austin
Okay.
is running. Yeah, like we talked about, we weren't sure how that was going to go, but it seems like they're, at least to start with, splitting the work a little bit. Interested to
Yeah,
see whether Austin does both laps or they go the 250 route.
Right. Yeah, I can't say Austin hasn't done any running, of course, of the relays, but it's very rare. Paul is usually the guy who does it. Okay, so Bubbles is running right now because Colin is on the rower. Wow. I like it. I like the strategy. I'm glad they're splitting things up. I think that's honestly, if you want to be the most efficient and the fastest team, you have to split the work. You can't do the whole run station thing. I mean, it works out in some situations, but top three in today's age and for this race, I don't think it works anymore. You have to split the work.
Yeah, and you can get set up as they are here, and they just have to have their teammate come in and tag them, and then they can start hammering the rower. So you see Colin and some other athletes. So it looks like, I think Austin is getting started first as Paul came in, or that's
no, I don't know that team. So that the orange shoes, that's first place.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Could be Sam and Arlo. From Chicago, which, I mean, if a team is traveling from Chicago just to only do teams, they might be the real deal. So and you are selling your soul on this rower, because more than half the time, this is maybe the one erg station other than maybe the bike and the ski erg. You don't really transition, because the transition time, other than, all right, there's Colin and Bubbles transitioning. But their power output can make up for that 2-3 seconds that they just missed.
I was going to say they might be the exception if Kevin only has to hammer 200 to 250 meters.
Absolutely.
And then that gives Colin a little bit of the recovery he needs to head out on this run. Interested to see if they continue that strategy of Colin taking the first lap, Kevin taking the second, and then trading off on the stations. As we mentioned in the lead-in, David McGee and Eric Williams did that, where they switched on everything, and it led to an overall faster time. So that may be what some of these teams have taken a cue from that World Championship performance.
Yeah, the proof is there, right? I mean, granted, you gotta have that high caliber talent. There's Colin and Bubbles just moved into first place. No surprise there, being how great they work on the rower. But the proof is there, right? I mean, it tells you the strategy of what you're capable of doing. Maybe not world record, but maybe that's the strategy to win a relay race. But that other team is right behind them. Man, they're fast. Yeah.
And there's Paul Fitzpatrick, I think in third, it looks like now at this point.
Yeah, this guy's right behind Colin. So this is another group that, again, I didn't mention before, that very well could win today, get a world record today. We don't know, right? That's what's exciting. First race of the season, some names come out, and they seem to be switching. This is where they pass, I think, Colin, because Colin's running the full 500, and they're breaking up to 250.
Mm-hmm. And Paul and Austin continuing to break. They just did it in a different order this time.
Yeah, I wonder if Austin did the full rower. I'll never forget when I did my first relay with Caleb Yates, and we had the strategy going in. Hey, I'm going to run, you do the stations. And Caleb got on the rower. He rode like a 118. I'll never forget it. He sold his soul, but man, did it ruin the rest of the race. and I mean, let alone I only had a minute rest, and of course I was going all out. It was bad strategy. Right. Sure enough, we need to redeem ourselves from that. But
yeah, it's like
sure enough,
totally
a 118.
Yeah,
you don't do that on the rower.
So now our top few teams are in there. You see Colin Stiefer and the other team that's hanging right with Colin and Kevin to start with, both ripping through those, and it looks like Kevin might be getting ready to run here.
Yeah, so the top four teams, there's Zach Tate and Mark Steeds in the background. But the one team I still don't see. Oh, there's Austin and Paul. Okay. I'm going to assume this is Sam Wise and Arlo Ready? that's battling out for first place right now. Or I guess it could be Bryce Chambers or the Andes. I don't know. I'm not sure, but man, these guys are killing it right now. They're doing great. And I think they already passed Kevin, maybe potentially. Nope, it looks like maybe Kevin still got the lead.
And now Colin's going to take over and hammer this 250.
Good trade-off. Okay, there they are. All right.
That's big. If Kevin and Colin can hang on to this lead through some of these earlier stations where there's not as much separation, that would be huge because you know that they are going to make time on the rest of the field on the bike. I would assume Colin probably will run that full 500 heading into the assault bike and let Kevin do his thing. So for these other teams, they've got to stay in the fight until then because they might be giving up 15, 20 plus seconds on station 7.
Agreed. Absolutely. It's huge that they have a lead right now because if they got a lead going into the assault bike, it's over. It's over. I think they'll like you mentioned, it's just going to add on maybe another 5 or 10 seconds to their already 5-10 second lead, and that's just something you can't give Kevin and Colin. So they need to make sure that the other teams got to make sure they are into the bike first.
Yeah, it looks like Kevin's already on the sit-ups off camera, so here we go. Here's a look at that. Yeah, so Colin, you can see Colin doubled over catching his breath right now after that 250, but that's what it takes.
Man, look at the strategy. Kevin throws that 20-pound medicine ball like it's nothing. And done. Wow.
That's more of a shoulder exercise than a core one for Kevin.
Yeah,
you got other people doing full-on sit-ups, but hey, it's the tech. As long as the technique is within the rules and you're hitting the target and coming back to the ground, you can do it however you want.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised that it's a little more spread out at the first 4 stations. I really thought it would be just a little bit closer. I mean, granted, we're still talking about 20, 25 seconds, but I thought it was going to be more neck and neck. But granted, we still got a long race to go, so.
But maybe another opportunity coming up here with the skier. Again, you've got a team composed of 2 guys that are both great on the station. So Colin and Kevin, as you see, Kevin all done from those sit-ups. He's going to run a hard 250 here.
The ski erg is going to change things up a little bit. Again, another power-based station, and Colin and Bubbles have already got a lead. These guys are probably going to trade off every 125 meters or 250 meters, right? Or maybe do 200, 300. I don't know. But these guys their output on the ski erg, if you can't match it, I mean, you're not going to gain anything. And then what are you going to do? You're going to sell yourself more on the ski erg and wear yourself out and blow your strategy. So the other teams are in a rough spot right now if they're looking to beat Colin and Kevin.
Especially because there's really not another opportunity between the ski erg and the assault bike. I mean, other than the run, because everyone's going to hammer the farmers, and it's not going to be that compromising for anybody. So here we go. And yeah, with the ski erg, obviously you see Kevin on one knee right now, just catching his breath. This is something you don't get the chance to do in a normal DEKA Fit is rest a little bit, but it sometimes makes it hurt that much more when you get back to it. But the nice thing here with the ski erg, obviously, you can essentially just keep it moving like they did there. It's not a row where you have to unbuckle, stand up, and have the other person come in. You can switch off that much more, which makes it hurt even more, right? If you're doing a 4x125, you can go that much harder when you're on it.
Absolutely. I bet they're rowing a low 130, high 120 right now. Or I say rowing, I'm sorry, ski erg. But if you notice, I mean, Paul and Austin running right in there, I know their strategy always pans out. So, I mean, these guys have competed in multiple world championships as a team. They know exactly what they're doing. I think they're in a good spot right now. There's Taylor Haney right there. He's a specimen like no other as well.
Dustin Needham behind him, just trying to catch his breath and get ready for his next opportunity.
Yeah, Dustin Needham's partner last year was Rylan Shadegg. And I'm pretty sure he was just like, I just let Ryland do whatever he wanted to. And then if he told me to run, I just ran, and I ran hard.
There it is.
All right, there we go.
And it's
So
the little
let's see
things,
what
right?
type
You
of lead
saw
we got.
Colin standing there with his one arm behind him, and you can see the other team doing the same thing now. But yeah, just making sure that you're ready to move so there's no wasted motion. When you get tagged, you're almost halfway into your first stride and ready to hammer. You see these athletes experienced enough in the team format to know that, but all of a sudden, Colin Stiefer, as you see running here, and Kevin Gregory have opened up that much more of a lead on everybody else.
Mm-hmm. About 20 seconds is what I took in from when the second place team tagged out. 20 seconds is a dangerous lead, knowing that the bike is right around the corner. I hope these guys can put the same output or at least be somewhat close to a 15-second assault bike, because we already know it's guaranteed. So I wonder if Kevin could ever break 10. I'm calling you out, Kevin. Can you be I don't know if it's ever been done. I won't count for a strong man. I want to see like a hybrid athlete. Has it ever been done? 12 seconds, 11 seconds maybe? I don't know. I want to see it though.
And the thing about that, it's not like it's a secret, right? He's come out and basically been like, hey, here's exactly what I do and how I do it, and the technique with, again, spinning it up slowly to start with and get some momentum. But it's one thing if you know how to do it. It's another thing if you're physically capable of doing it. And clearly, at least right now still, he has got an advantage over the rest of the field just in his ability to execute that. And no one's got more practice than him with the amount of team competitions that he's done.
And he's such a humble guy, and I know he just wants to help everybody. That's why he tells you his strategy. But in a way, it's a big flex, because he's like, hey, this is my strategy, but yet I still do it way better than you are. So
1440 was when Colin picked up the dumbbells on this farmer's carry. And yeah, he is absolutely getting after it here.
Robin on the skates behind him, trying to keep up. Yeah, no team is going to make any ground on this station. Maybe a second or two, but that's – oh, wow, Paul in second. Wow, okay.
So it looks like Paul Fitzpatrick and Austin Pendleshoff have paced themselves well here, running their race, and have moved themselves into second place.
That's great. Wow. Yeah, you would think at the beginning that they were maybe just slightly off, but it seems like them splitting everything like this has been a great strategy in their part. They're not that far behind, and I know Austin can do the bike very fast as well, maybe potentially 20 seconds, if not sub 20 seconds. So Austin's a great guy to put on the assault bike.
Yeah, both teams are doing the same thing where they presumably, we assume Austin's going to do it. They're having the bike guy do the first lap here, and that's going to let both Colin Stiefer and Paul Fitzpatrick hit that second 250 hard and let Kevin and Austin get ready for the bikes. You see off camera, Kevin just passed the baton over to Colin, who is now going to hammer this and get ready, because we got a glimpse of it during this morning's race where they cut to Kevin right as he was finishing the bike. But now we should hopefully get to see the entirety of the Kevin Gregory assault bike experience here.
There's Paul right there. Yep, here we go. All right, everybody, if you have a hat on, if you got paper around you, hold on to it, weigh it down. This is going to get blown through the screen. Oh, wow.
Do what you do. Bubbles rise.
Wow, this team just came out of nowhere.
Oh.
I think they missed the lap.
Oh, okay. Whoa, I was about to say that that jaw dropped right there.
Yeah, so here we go. All right, Kevin Gregory, he's going to slow play it to start with, and now let's just watch.
Man, it's probably so loud right there. Kevin Gregory, the man, the myth, the legend. 12 seconds. I got 12 seconds on that. Wow. All right, let's see if Austin can at least be within arm's reach of that. Wow, I got 12 seconds. Wow.
Yeah, Austin's in the middle of it right now, so he is certainly getting after it too. You see Colin here on the run. Now Austin trying to do what he can to give his teammate Paul a chance to try and make up some ground.
Oh, man. So that team that was jostling for second, they have definitely lost some ground. It seems like they're dying off just a bit because here's Zach Tate and Mark Steeds catching up. Needham and Haney.
Not only that, but they lost time, right? Because the one teammate came in, tagged the guy on the bike in, and he started, and then that's when everyone realized that they needed to do an extra lap.
Yep.
So, they lost probably 10 extra seconds there, and they might find themselves now having to fight for the podium.
And doing that too, not just only killing your time, kills you mentally, right? There's the infamous Kevin on the ground after. I'm assuming Colin will do the full 500 meters, of course. So, but yeah, it messes with you mentally, right? I mean, if you're in second place and here you are jostling and you do just a little bit of a mishap, it just fatigues you and it just kind of knocks you out of it. And we can see that right now with this team. I don't even think they're top 4 right now.
Yeah, I think they had to switch off on the bike, or maybe they were planning to do it. Either way, that's not going to be as fast as what Kevin certainly and even Austin was able to do, as they seem like they've gapped the field a little bit in terms of the top 2 teams. But here we go. So they're 8 runs deep, and now Kevin Gregory onto those dead ball overs finally got his, minute and a half recovery or what have you.
All right, so we're about 5 minutes out from the world record. 2 runs left. It's sledding. Man, I don't know. It's going to be close.
Yeah, I think it's tough with the sled because you can only push a sled so fast.
Right.
And there's just a lot of distance to cover there. But it looks like Austin and Paul are in a solid second place now.
Now you're going to see the technique of the sled push, what Dylan Scott has deemed as the row and go, or him and Stankovic, I think pretty much created it. The teammate who pulls is going to be holding onto the straps as the teammate is pushing. So therefore, the second the tires cross that line, they are already in pull go mode. And it is so efficient, it's so much faster to do it that way. Every team should be doing that if they're in run for the podium today.
So Austin Tennelshoff still working through his final few reps as Colin Stiefer continues to build that lead on his run.
So Austin and Paul in second place right now. I don't think we'll make up too much gain at this point, unless the runs, of course. That last 500-meter run, though, it could be a difference maker, and I think they know that. So they just need to be within reach. But Colin and Kevin are going to kill this tank. I mean, I'm pretty sure the wheels are going to come off, and there's going to be skid marks everywhere. So, but as far as third place, I think it's Zach Tate and Mark Steeds, because I saw Zach Tate doing some wall overs. All right, here we go. Let's see if Colin just takes it or...
So they're continuing to trade off the run here, and that's an interesting the way that this race has unfolded. I think maybe, Kevin running more than we might have expected coming in, but that seems to have paid off for them because Colin's obviously been able to do a lot of work on the stations as well, giving Kevin a bit more rest time and obviously giving way on the bike for him to do his thing.
And what's crazy is Kevin doing maybe more running than he's used to with these DEKA Fits, but still producing 12-second assault bike times. I mean, that's remarkable. That's crazy. I mean, to do it well rested is one thing. To do it while your heart rate's probably 190 plus is very impressive. And I'm sure he did that during the elite race as well too earlier, but it's just remarkable, and it shows it's a true testament to his fitness.
So it looks like they're doing the straight up pull and trade off. So Kevin doing this entire rep.
And it seems like Paul is doing it also. Now I'm starting to wonder if Yancey maybe got rid of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so you see Colin Stiefer here right in the foreground on the right-hand side of the screen. It's a little tricky because there's just other traffic on the course, but Austin Tendelshoff and Paul Fitzpatrick in second place. They're in all black each, and right now Kevin and Colin are a little bit more than a full length ahead of them. So they've maintained a pretty solid gap. This is rep number 4 for Kevin and Colin. I believe it's rep number 3 that Paul is pushing on now. So again, whoever runs first is going to come out of it, while the second place team is still working through their 5th and final rep.
It'll be interesting to see how Austin and Paul take this on this run. I think Kevin has enough in him. I think he does. I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing. I don't think he would have teamed up with Colin if he didn't believe in himself on that with the running. He's still a strong runner too in his own sense. So,
yeah, I think his prowess on the station work and what he's done in DEKA Strong, you talk about that more, but this is still a guy that's been competing in Spartan as far back as the sport has existed and, certainly has running ability built up over the years. And you can see Colin kind of urging him on a little bit. And remember, this 10th and final run, they have to do together. So unlike we saw, in runs 2 through 9, where you're able to trade off or maybe have someone do the full 500, here it does have to be the two together. And that's, this is where sort of the team aspect comes into play even more, because if someone is struggling a bit more than the other, well, you're only as fast as the slowest teammate.
Correct. Yeah, and that's where it can hurt you, and you could tell Colin's just trying to be a good teammate, encouraging Bubbles. Bubbles just hanging on for dear life at this point. I'm sure Colin will tackle probably the first couple burpees as well. But they still got a pretty good sizable lead, it looks like.
Yeah, don't even see Austin and Paul yet coming in. So, maybe they themselves, as you see them, I can see them off screen as they turn the corner here. They might collectively be moving a little bit better, but it seems like Colin and Kevin continue to build that gap.
Oh, man, they're probably a half lap ahead right now. Oh, this is going to be close.
And there's Dustin Needham. He and his teammate are a lap behind. So Colin and Kevin coming into burpees right now. And yeah, Colin's going to take at least the first few of these, let Kevin catch his breath a little bit, and maybe they trade off later on.
I like the little jumping technique. All right, so 7. So they have about a 9 burpee lead that I think is just enough.
Yeah, you see Yancey calling out the 4, making sure everyone locks out. And again, that kind of evens the playing field in terms of, it takes a certain amount of time to fully extend your arms. Obviously, Kevin's got some longer levers to work with here, but they've only got a few burpees left. So I think they're in a good spot to take this. Most likely sub 27.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say they got it. Yep.
There it is, 26-20. Wow. Colin Stiefer and Kevin Gregory. Colin, his second win of the day, and a solid time, 26-20.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
The leaderboard from last year, that I believe will put them – it would have put them in 7th place in the 2023 season, right ahead of Brian Neely and Zach Tate, who are at 26-25. So a solid performance in a season opener. It's the fastest men's team that Kevin Gregory or Colin have put on board. So for those two guys, impressive and, not too far away from, that 25-minute barrier that so far only one team has done.
Yeah, very impressive outing. Of course, these guys don't train together. They live in completely different states. So to be able to team up and then say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, the strategy, you just kind of go with it. And if it meshes well, it meshes well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And today it definitely meshed well. Colin undefeated for today. Kevin getting at least one win out of it. Honestly, if you're going to have a perfect teammate for DEKA, Kevin is the perfect teammate. That guy is just awesome at everything he does when it comes to DEKA. So congratulations to them. And then Austin and Paul, not too far off from their PR, not their best race, but still second place is awesome. It's an accomplishment nonetheless. They qualify for the World Championships technically, so they're there. And then Zach Tate and Mark Steeds in third. Wow, that's a team we didn't say. Wow.
Yeah, they definitely picked their spots, bided some time. And how about Dustin Needham and Taylor Haney coming in, I believe, in fourth place? They were, again, running their own pace. They didn't get caught up necessarily in what Colin and Kevin were doing, but just over 28 minutes, a strong showing for them, especially given that Dustin is an athlete who raced already this morning.
And there's Chaz and Joshua finished in fifth place. So, yeah, the five teams that I did kind of predict their meshing all meshed well together there at the last five. Pardon me. I think we got the females coming up now. Oh, I'm sorry. There's Melody. So she's not teaming up with Derek. I apologize. Oh, okay. So this name's wasn't on the list before, but the lady in the orange shorts, white tank top, Marissa Pope, she told me, and she is deeming herself the box queen, not Amber Tate, Marissa Pope. And I will say this, she is fast. She is fast, and she can fly on those boxes like no other. If there is someone who can deem herself as a box queen, Marissa Pope is definitely that one. Prepare for her team to make a name for themselves today. I'm not sure what her teammate's name is, but that team will definitely be in a run for the podium.
So it looks like we're going to have, I believe, the co-ed and women's teams going off at the same time.
Oh, okay, I like that.
Because I see Morgan just came into the start line, and based on the start list, she's teaming up with Alexander Golick.
It looks like they're the only... Oh, well, Derek York's in the back. I wonder if he's teaming up with another National Guard member. Yeah, so these ladies in the neon tank, prepare for that because that is Melody Barong, and then Andrea Duncan. They're at the same gym that Taylor and Collins train at as well. So prepare for that team.
And then Karen Guidry and Amber Tate, I believe, are in matching kind of light blue tanks. And we expect them to be, in the front of the women's field. We'll see how they can compare to, if there are co-ed teams on the course at the same time. But this will be an interesting dynamic because we have multiple races potentially here going on at the exact same time.
Yeah, this will be interesting. Co-ed may be in front. I don't know, though. I mean, these women are just fast enough where a female team can compete just as well with a co-ed team.
Individuals, cameras.
So the lady that Derek is standing next to, she looks like she was from the Elite Heat earlier today, one of the National Guard members. So I wonder if the strategy is Derek does the majority of running, and maybe she does the station work. Maybe she's pretty strong at the station work. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I don't know. I think Morgan Schultz and Alex Golick are the first team in the station, though. Oh, there's Keith Dillings. No, just kidding. That's Keaton Billings. I told you I'd do it. That's funny. He was also a teammate of mine last weekend.
Nice. Looking at last year's results, it doesn't look like Morgan competed in a team event at all, and the Bill and Joy Brumbach didn't either. Now, they've competed a lot together in High Rocks, but it looks like at least if they've done DEKA FIT together, it would have been more than a year ago. So it's hard to get a gauge on, where those co-ed teams might compare to Karen and Amber, but, we should see a competitive field here up front. These two packs together, roughly the same size, it seems like, as the men's field. There might have even been a few more guys out there in total. So I think, probably a good call here to send them off together, because I think this might be a case where the presence of some strong co-ed teams might help pull the top women's teams up to a stronger performance.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you on that. I personally love seeing the top names in our sport competing in relays such as this. They don't have to, right? Their whole purpose was to come to this race in the elite wave, win, get paid, which they deserve, and leave, right? But the fact that they want to team up and do this, such as Morgan Schultz and Colin Steefer today, great examples. I think it's great for the sport because it really showcases maybe a different side of the talent that you just typically don't see in a typical race. You see truly how fast they can be on the stations or how fast their speed work can truly be. So I think this is great that Morgan's teaming up with Alex Goic right here. And like you said, with the co-ed team, I think it's going to push the other female teams along with it. Granted that Morgan can honestly be on any team, and I think she would just fit in just fine with any other person.
So I think we're just a few seconds away from getting underway here. You see Morgan and Alex there up front, expecting them to lead the pack in the co-ed teams, at least to start, especially based on Morgan's performance earlier.
Well, Xander, I'm going to make a big bet that Derek York does not run this 500 as fast as he maybe normally does, unless his teammate is just as fast as he is, and we just don't know it, of course. But I think Derek just pumps the brake just a little bit so he can allow his teammate to catch her breath.
And that'll help him out when it comes to the subsequent runs. Yeah, again, it'll be interesting. As we saw in the men's race, maybe we didn't expect some of the distribution, right? We talked about coming in, Kevin Gregory is a station specialist, even understanding what Colin can do. And, Austin is a strong guy in terms of strong and mile, and Paul Fitzpatrick maybe more of a runner. But both of those teams split up the work a lot more than we thought, and it helped them put together stronger times. So we may see something here with these co-ed and women's teams, but we're underway. And the nice thing here, the course even that much more clearer, knowing that a lot of the open or age group heats that had been going at the start of the men's race have mostly finished up at this point, which is good because a clearer course, we can really see what these teams can do.
Yeah, like I mentioned at the beginning before the races started, the co-ed strategy is always important because you have to change the settings to the tank. You have to make sure you're using the proper weight. I assume the women could use the men's weight if they really wanted to, but why would you? I just know the men for sure cannot use the women's weight. So strategy comes real big when you're doing co-ed.
And I believe that's Bill and Joy we can see running kind of at the back of the pack there. Is not a ton of separation as we'd expect early on, but we got a whole swarm of athletes here coming into lunges.
There's Amber Tate in the blue, Marissa Pope in the white. I'll tell you this. I mean, Karen Guitry and Amber Tate, I still got them winning, but these ladies in the neon and the ladies in the white are going to give them a good run for their money. And there goes Alex. So see, again, good strategy maybe for the women doing the ram rollers, just because the weight is a little bit less than what a man would typically do. And therefore, if she's just a little bit more efficient or just as efficient, it's best to break that up in strategy and let the female do the lunges. So I'm going to assume that's first and second place for the females. Karen out there in front.
Yeah, again, Karen and Amber, one of the few combinations who competed together last year, third place in the World Championship. So they had the experience of having raced together. And, neither of them, I don't believe, raced this morning. So they've got fresher legs maybe compared to some of these other athletes. But, the team in white, you said Marissa and her teammate are certainly going to give them a run for their money.
Absolutely. Yeah, they definitely got speed on their side. As far as the station work, I don't know. Station 3 is what I want to see. If it's Amber Tate and Marissa Pope doing the box overs at the same time, let's really see who the box queen is.
So now we're getting set for the rower. You see all of the team athletes who are going to start getting in position. Again, they can get set up. They just need to wait until they get tagged on the shoulder or the hand and then start their row. So here we go. Alex Golick already underway, with Morgan Schultz having finished the run. And there's Derek and his teammates. So we're going to have a bit of a battle here, I think, in the co-ed teams so far.
Yeah, Derek brings an interesting element to this co-ed race because he's not much of a station guy. He's definitely a runner. And if anybody's going to run the fastest 250-meter splits out of just this wave, it's definitely Derek. I would put all my money in the bank because this guy can fly, definitely even on sprints. So if they're behind just slightly, they're going to make up that room on the run for sure. Alex is awesome at the stations. He's just so young too. I think he's early 20s. Trains underneath Kevin. Hell of an athlete for sure. And I believe their biggest number one fan is his mom, Mama Golick. I said I would give a shout out to her. Here's her shout out. She is always there at the events, from my understanding, always cheering them on, taking photos. Everyone knows who she is. So Mama Golick, way to be the underdog's number one fan. If not coach, we'll just say your number one coach.
And he's taken the majority, if not all, of the row here. And I think that's, a strategy you can put into play when you've got a teammate with the running caliber of Morgan Schultz, who's now already out on this run. We saw what Morgan can do in terms of a DEKA Fit race, and now you give her that much more of a break, not having to do any of the rowing. She can go that much harder, as we get a look at that right here on this run number 3.
Typically, when you do a co-ed race, typically you would let the male do the machine work, typically just because they can put more of an output. But it'd be interesting to see with someone such as Morgan Schultz, who could probably do really well on the machines, or even maybe a stronger female. Do you trade off at all, or do you just take on the whole load of 500 meters, as taxing as it will be?
So we do have some live splits up online, but I don't believe that every team is being shown, because right now, in terms of our co-ed teams, it has Morgan and Alex at 5:21 coming out of the row, and then Bill and Joy at 5:54. But we know that Derek and his teammate are in there somewhere, so they're not showing up on the splits right now. But we'll see how that unfolds. I was hoping we could get a name there, based on the live tracking, but we'll just see how this race unfolds.
Yeah, I guess we'll kind of see it as they come into the stations.
Doing great, Corey.
Let's see. So it looks like Amber Tate and Karen Guitry are actually in second, unless they're a whole lap ahead, which I don't think they're a whole lap ahead yet.
No, because Marissa and her teammate, I believe, tagged off having just done a 250 run. So with Karen and Amber also tagging. So here we go. You see Morgan already getting after it on the box step overs.
Yeah, I think this team, with their abilities, they're the best team in the elite field at the moment. Unless Derek can really make up some room with his teammate. Oh, wow. Alex is – oh, no. Too fast for his own good. He almost came out of his shoes.
That's about the only thing that can stop you on this station is accidentally slipping.
That's true. It happened to Megan Jacoby in Orlando last year, if you remember. She fell and injured herself in the process, and that's how she ended up losing.
Yeah,
so here comes Marissa Pope and Amber.
Tiny bit.
Oh, man, I wish I would be seeing Amber and Marissa right now in the box overs. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Oh, wow, look how fast Marissa is. She's doing 2 for almost every one of wow. And we all know how great Amber is.
Marissa is just going back and forth with zero wasted effort. An impressive showing right there, although Amber finishes up and takes off on the run just a couple of seconds behind. So we may be in for a really good battle here in this women's race.
I think so too. Yeah, this is going to come down to the wire. Because if people remember as well too, World Championships last year, Marissa Pope teamed up with Keaton Billings, and I didn't pick them to be top 3 in any of the 3 days that they did teams, and they only did teams, and they did well. They finished top 3. They made a name for themselves. If they weren't top 3, they were 4th. So she is definitely more than capable of picking a winning formula in a teammate to make a name for themselves today, and I think that's exactly what they're doing. They're giving the 3rd place female team of Worlds a good run for their money.
So we're just about a third of the way into this race.
Fellow Rabbit right there. Candace working on that.
I don't know if you could see in the background, but it looked like there Marissa and either Karen or Amber were basically stride for stride with each other.
Oh, man. Yeah, female race. This is fun to watch right now. So again, another good strategy, putting the female in the med ball setups. It's slightly lighter, and Morgan should have no issues doing them as well too. I don't know if Derek is going to do the setups, but is he going to do them just as fast as Morgan does the lighter weight? I don't know. I don't think this is a station they're going to make too much ground on.
And they are already done, so I think Alex is going to head back out on the run, trying to build that overall lead here in this heat.
Wow.
As Amber starts her sit-ups.
They were identical on the tag. Oh, but Amber seems to be moving much faster. Oh, man. This is a race right here.
Yeah, we talked about Marissa's technique on the box step-overs. Amber kind of has that same advantage here on the sit-ups. You can just tell that she is moving a lot faster through that movement cycle, as in the inset screen we see Alex getting after it here on the run. So seems like, getting knocked down when he tripped off the box step over there isn't hurting him too much, or at least if it is, he's not letting it show here in his movement.
Yeah. I think when you're in the lead, you can't let that show, right? You got to definitely just pull through.
And they're continuing to trade off as he just handed the baton over to Morgan. So she'll do the next 250 before they go to the ski erg.
So Karen and Amber were faster on that station. They pulled ahead by just a few seconds, but we'll see if the run changes anything. The ski erg will be interesting to see, I wonder if a little more experience with it. I don't know how Marissa and her teammate are with the ski erg, but I definitely know how Karen and Amber are based off experience. So it'll be interesting to see if it closed the gap or if it gets spread out even more.
And you can see Karen there looking over her shoulder a little bit around the corners. That's the one benefit of this sort of contained environment where you're doing 2 laps. You get a couple of chances to just sort of glance back as you make the turn without really having to turn around. And I think she was trying to get a sense of, where second place was. And yeah, they've opened up a couple of seconds of a gap as you see Alex and Morgan here just continuing to open up on the rest of this field. They will trade off as Morgan takes the ski erg, but we'll keep an eye on the other side of the station here with the women's field. So it looks like Derek and his teammate are in as she is skiing there in the back left of the screen. So Karen comes in, tags in Amber. So first place women's team here in Station 5. Morgan hands off back to Alex. And now
wow, look at Marissa go. She is hammering those pulls right now. Yeah, I think when it comes to a co-ed team, you can have, let's say, a males that are equally in strength or females that are equally in strength. It really comes down to, is the other counterpart just as strong as the other teammate's counterpart as well? Or if you're just a little bit more advanced than the other one. And I think in this case, with Derek York's partner, not that I'm not calling her out by any means, just you're going up against the world champion. It's hard to match what a world champion is capable of if you're not, in fact, already a previous world champion or not. So unless Derek can pull up a couple more works or more of the runs and stuff, I can see Alex and Morgan running away with this pretty easily.
Yeah, and based on the results from this morning, it looks like Alex ran a 34.44, so a strong performance on his part in the men's field this morning, running a strong time there, winning his 18 to 24 age group by over a minute. So he put in some work earlier, and yeah, you're seeing them as sort of the class of this combined heat as he is out on the run here heading towards the 6, which will be the Farmers Carry.
All right, so there goes Karen. Oh, wow. All
Only
right.
about
They're
5
still
seconds.
neck and neck.
This is still one heck of a race here. About 15 minutes in, right at the halfway mark in terms of like overall distance. And it is anyone's race at this point. And this could come down to the bike. Not that anyone's necessarily going to pull a Kevin Gregory, but we've seen in the women's field sometimes the bike can be the decider, just like in the men's or co-ed. And so, yeah, that might be where it comes down to, because especially, with how light the weight is relative to the strength of some of these athletes, as you can see Morgan basically jogging here. Like, it's not much of a compromise at all. So you would expect the two top female teams to be just as close coming out of this station as they were coming out of the skier.
Yeah, I love this. I love this trade-off that they're doing. I love that Morgan's tackling on the weighted exercises. I just think it's appropriate, definitely for their team strengths. She's strong enough to do it. And, I mean, like I mentioned earlier today when she was doing her elite race, she needs to pick up the men's weight. But I love the strategy, and it's playing well for them right now.
She makes her way back to the exchange zone. So they've got one more run now before the assault bike. And here comes Derek. So that's your second place co-ed team right now. A sizable gap behind Morgan and Alex, but still a strong showing for them here in this field.
Absolutely. I think maybe Bill and Joy Brumbach is right behind them for third, but it looks like they're setting pretty comfortably in second right now. And there's Candace and her daughter right there. I'm sure Shan's out there somewhere cheering them on. All right, so Amber and Garen still in the lead. It seems like they kind of gained a little bit on the run.
And Amber, it seems like moving just as fast, if not faster, than Morgan was. And I think that's maybe an outcome of this being more of a race in their field, knowing, hey, if we can pick up 3 or 4 seconds here on this station, that's going to make it that much better for us heading into the bike.
Absolutely.
So now Karen takes off. That's your first place women's team. Again, the third place finishers in the World Championship last year. And yeah, this is going to be about a 10 to 15 second gap by the time the second place team comes around and finishes the Farmers Carry. So the first move really of this women's race has happened here from this coming out of the skier through this station, but a lot will be decided here coming up after this run in the assault bike.
Yeah, I'm not sure who we can argue to say is the most dominant on the assault bike, right? I don't know their individual splits. I don't know what their team split was last year, but it very well could be the difference maker today. Or the tank, right? The tank very well could be. In a relay format, definitely if you can't do the row and go strategy, at least we just haven't seen it yet. I don't know if it's allowed or not. And I love that they split up this bike. I think it's great. I think it's smart. They got a big enough lead to where they can do this, even if they happen to lose time by doing so, which I don't think they did. So
Morgan finished things up there. She looked a little bit more comfortable on the bike this time. I think it was at a slightly better height for her than the first one. But yeah, a strong showing from our top co-ed team.
Oh, wow. Okay, I thought Derek's teammate was running. So they just got in. So Derek is making gain on these runs, though. I mean, the whole assault bike is probably going to take about, 40 seconds to a minute, of course, but
yeah, you can tell Derek's feeling it just by his facial expression and being doubled over. He is absolutely selling out on these runs.
Derek is definitely known to give it everything he's got and lay on the floor afterwards, just much like Kevin. I got a lot of video proof of that when he did Fittest of the Foundry, my workout event a few years back.
Here's Karen Guidry right now, part of the leading women's team.
So smart strategy to take a bike that's facing where the runners are coming in, so you get an idea of maybe how far ahead you are. You could tell she was looking up the whole time. Now that she knows the teammate's in there, she's putting her head down and digging deep now.
And there's Bill Brumbach tagging in his wife Joy as they're maybe fighting for a co-ed podium. Not exactly sure if there's another team between Derek and them.
Yeah, you got that team in the far left right there. Lawrence, I believe is his name. And the female, I've seen her before. Definitely a stronger female for sure compared to most of these females out here.
Amber Tate here selling out, trying to finish up these last few calories as Karen Guidry, her teammate who put in some solid work on the bike to start with, looks on, getting ready to run. See Karen
looks like
with her
she's smiling
eyes
the
on.
whole time.
So here we go. Our first place women's team is back out on the run. They've got 3 runs left and 3 stations. Still an opportunity maybe on the tank for that second place team to catch up, but it seems like at the very least, Karen and Amber were able to sustain, and I think it looks like they're going to have put in maybe an increased gap because that second place team is still on the bike.
Yeah, no, great move on their end. I doubt I think they have the experience to where they're not going to necessarily blow up, and I think the teammates are they complement each other so well that if one teammate is truly fatigued, the other can take over the workload if need be. Yeah, so they build a lead quite a bit.
Definitely, and they've been extending their lead these last couple of runs as well. So, and that's the tough part is if you're able to survive the bike and come out strong, maybe you can increase that gap even more. If the team behind you was struggling a bit more on the bike, then maybe they're going to be a little bit rougher on the run, but they might get extended out even more. But still a little bit to go. You see, with how intense this is when you're moving, athletes are using every opportunity to try and get whatever recovery they can, whether it's getting down on the ground, kneeling down, just doing anything they can to catch their breath because they know when they're back on, they're going to have to rip it that much harder.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so here's a great example of co-eds where they have to switch out the weights. It costs maybe a second or two to do it, but if you're going to split it up, that you have to do it. It is required. But obviously, this type of station, it's a quick transition. The ram burpees is what's interesting because you have to use the same mat. And I don't know if you're required to hold the weight prior or if the weight's just going to be right there in front of you. I'm not sure. That could be a little bit of a hassle. But this type of station, not so much.
So it was about 22:50 when Karen tagged in Amber on this station. So they've got at least a 15-second lead, if not more, on this second place team as we're still waiting for the team in white and orange to start their ball overs. Now Morgan Scholes and her teammate Alex Golick running away with this competition. working their way through the tank push with just 1 run to go.
So Marissa Pope's team name is Shy. That's her teammate's name is Shy. She competed at High Rocks last weekend along with Marissa, and has done a couple DEKA Fits as well. So an experienced athlete in words. She's podiumed a few races. So this is definitely a good combo. Okay, so a judge just adjusted their tank. I would assume it's allowed. From my understanding, it is not. That's something I'll have to clear up with Yancey for my road shows.
The judge is adjusting their tanks.
Okay, so that must be. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, so Yancey corrected him on that. Okay.
Yeah, you saw Alex kind of reach down to do it himself. So I think, yeah, that's Yancey just making sure that the judges know the deal. And, that's the great thing about DEKA is how hands-on, Yancey as the visionary sort of this sport. And he's at every event just making sure that the standards are upheld and, continuing to evolve those standards and make sure we have the best, most consistent
take it off and hold it.
Absolutely. And, and it's on the athletes technically. They knew this beforehand, but when you're racing, you get race brain so easily and you're so out of it that even though you kind of know the rules, you get lost. And then if someone just does it, you just kind of allow it to happen. And as long as a judge is kind of doing it, you just roll with what a judge tells you. If it's a no rep, it's a no rep. If it's a rep, it's a rep. Is it truly their fault? I don't know. It's always an opinion. But either way, I'm glad it was corrected and everything, and just letting people know for future races, you as a competitor have to change it yourself. Oh, look at the mass of the other teams there in the corral. It's about to get very crowded out there.
Yeah, I think these last few elite teams are going to be glad to be done by the time the traffic of age group or open wave teams come out.
Yeah, I like the new concept that DEKA Fit is doing for teams. They're not doing the average age like most races do. They're doing a combined age, which I think is an interesting aspect. Another cool concept they just put in for DEKA Fit teams is they're doing adult and kid races now. So a kid under 14 years old who's not required to do the adult weight can team up, such as I can do it now with my 10-year-old daughter, which I think is awesome. Now they're having their own class for that. I believe you qualify for Worlds for that as well too. So it's a cool concept.
Yeah, it's just great, encouraging participation in a whole bunch of different ways that you maybe wouldn't get in even a Spartan race or a traditional sport. Just the teamwork and the relay formats. It's pretty welcoming because even if maybe someone isn't ready for the full DEKA Fit themselves yet, you team up with somebody and share the load. Whether you're here at the top end of the sport, like these athletes are just trying to get your feet wet and experience. There's a lot of opportunity for that. Yeah, the combined age is cool because rather than taking the oldest or whether it's a parent-child tandem or two guys in their early 30s, like if you and I teamed up, like it kind of levels the playing field a little bit, and it's cool to see.
Absolutely. That's why I've called this DEKA Fit the WrestleMania fitness. There's so many categories, so many opportunities. You can't shy away from it. There's always a category for you out there.
So Karen Guidry and Amber Tate looks like they are well on their way to a victory here as they are out on the run, and the second place team, Marissa and Shy, are still at least one full length behind, if not two.
Yeah, I can't imagine Amber and Karen are hurting by any means on this run. So I think they're going to maintain this run and, of course, complete the burpees just fine and take this W. So I think they just announced AJ Golick and Morgan Schultz won the co-ed division.
And it looks like 28:13 is their unofficial finishing time, which would put them pretty highly in the co-ed ranks from last year. 28-13 is about 15th place, right behind Chris Rogowski and Johnny Mares. So solid job from them here in this season opener, competing together. It appears for the first time, I think the first team event that Morgan has done at all. So a strong effort from two athletes who already competed earlier. Morgan, of course, winning the women's race overall. And then AJ, as they're calling him here, first place, 18-24, and getting it done in the team. So hopefully we're going to have an exciting finish here in the women's race, as we saw Karen and Amber, who maybe we expected to be at the front, taking it, as Derek and his teammate appear to be in a solid second place.
Not too bad of a time either. I assume they the reason why their names probably isn't popping up on the leaderboard, they probably signed up today, right? It was a last minute decision. Both National Guard members, they wanted to do it, of course, for our country. And so we appreciate those two for showing up. And hey, second place out of it, I say that's a win.
And you see the setup here different from during the elite fields earlier, where you have both ram rollers by the mat, at least for the co-ed teams. Again, they have to set it down and trade off if they want to. Now, obviously, Karen and Amber here using the same weight.
She almost gave a souvenir to a bystander. Oh, man. She almost took a kid out.
You see her. Yeah, and then she was calling out, take it, mid-rep. So I think she knew when she was just about cashed out here. But
talk about
good on her
palms
for banging out a couple of more reps. Yeah.
Okay, so here's third place. All right. All right, congrats to Derek and his teammate.
Just a few reps left for Karen and Amber. There we go. They'll be right at about 31 minutes. A strong effort from those two as they win the women's race here today.
And there's Marissa and Shai. Seems like they secured second place. Xander, where does their time put them from previous?
So based on last year, it would be seventh including themselves. They were 30-16 together at World Championship, but sixth place was Bethany McChesney and Heather White, who finished 30-54. So they were right behind that. A solid showing, in this season opener for a team that, based on competing together at World Championships last year, based on competing in the season opener, I'm sure they have plans to compete together at various points throughout the season. So a great performance, as they're going to have a victory by over a minute here.
All right. Yeah, great showing. There's third place right there. I'm not sure burpee-wise if they're ahead enough or not. I'm sure they are. Yeah, there's second place. The box queen, Marissa Pope. I love it.
And Zone 11 remains undefeated, especially after a team race when you're going that much harder when you're working.
Yancey's going to have to make that zone much bigger. The amount of bodies that lay there for minutes on end, he's going to have to make that station huge. There we got Candace and her daughter. I think first time competing in the elite heat together. I'm pretty sure they competed at World Championships together last year. So Xander, what's your overall thoughts on the relays, man? This is our first time covering it together, and I had the great opportunity of doing it at the World Championships, of course, for the first time. But what's your thoughts on the relay compared to individual?
Yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic. It's exciting. I think that there's a potential for team relay to be possibly the most exciting race of the weekend at World Championships in a certain capacity. I think here, especially in the men's field, we had, a couple of strong teams up front making an interesting race overall. And even, in these co-ed and women's races, there were, decent gaps in the second half of the race, but I love the difference in strategy, right? Understanding, hey, how are we going to split up this work? Are we going to trade off everything? Which we saw, I think, more often than not today, is we saw teams, doing 250 at a time on the run rather than having a run specialist. And I think, it'll be interesting, I think, to see if that continues as the season unfolds, or if, maybe some teams change their combinations and have, a bit more of a run specialist like we saw, in the women's field last year with Bethany McChesney and Heather White, really kind of fitting that archetype of one person doing the majority of the stations and one running. On the other hand, like we saw last year with the men's field, David and Eric splitting everything. I think, especially in the men's race today, I think you saw the outcome of the race that they had last year, where these men realized that they're going to need to share the load and nail their transitions if they want to be competitive when it comes down to the end of the season this year.
Yeah, and another thing that's exciting about team races, excuse me, I'm getting so excited now, my voice is completely gone now, is that the top stars, it's another category for, let's say JV talent, right? We'll just say JV talent, B talent, whatever, to really showcase their skills and show how great they are as athletes. But it is really good for the sport when the varsity or the A-list people decide to really come down and be like, you know what? Let's pair together. Let's team up and let's show like what two tremendous athletes together formed as one can really show. And it's great for us as viewers. And we got to see that today with Colin and Kevin, Amber and Karen. And then, of course, for the relay or for the co-ed, AJ Golick and Morgan Schultz. Oh, my voice is gone.
Yeah,
it's gone.
And you see it a lot on social media after the races where they talk about, the team relay that they did after the main competition. But now to finally get to see it and cover it, it's just awesome. Yeah, I think for the community and for the growth of this sport, that the top competitors, the majority of them are sticking around and getting after it in the team competition. And I think we're excited to hopefully continue to bring the team events live on the broadcast here throughout the season.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I think that's going to just about do it for us today. It's been a long day of DEKA FIT for us. I can only imagine what it's been like for Jason, Shan, the rest of our rabbits there on site in Knoxville. But a great kickoff to the 2024 DEKA FIT season. We've got some results, it seems like, that'll be put up on the screen here momentarily. And so here we go. Yeah, Kevin Gregory and Colin Stiefer, 26-23. Paul Fitzpatrick, Austin Tenelshoff, about 40 seconds behind them. And yeah, you could see this was a very competitive men's race with, sub 28:30 for fifth place in Joshua Gonzalez and Chad Hatton.
Wow. Yeah, these were all super fast times. The 5K times were super fast. I apologize. My voice is gone, guys. But the Colin and Kevin, I wonder what their 5K split was. I would assume it's fairly fast as well, too. Maybe a sub 17. Either way, overall wise, they showed up today and they put on a great show for us.
Yeah, that's sub 5:30 pace for the 16:29 for Paul Fitzpatrick and Austin Tenelshoff. And that goes to show you when you split up the work, what that means for the intensity of the run, because those two guys were both in the 19s during the individual race this morning, which in and of itself is a solid time. It's just above 6-minute pace, but you talk about what it looks like in terms of, a team event and how fast you need to be. I mean, that goes to show it right there. And the station work, you're looking at, roughly 11 minutes combined on the stations, which is in and of itself pretty close to a top DEKA strong time. So you're combining more intense running with more intense stations. And then, here's a look at the co-ed teams. The co-ed team's top 10. Again, this is not a complete list because we know Derek and his teammate were a late sign-up, so they weren't showing up on the live results. But AJ Golick and Morgan Schultz, sub-19 5K combined, and a solid effort for them as well.
Yeah, it was a great showing. I'm assuming Derek's 5K time was probably really fast. I mean, I know his teammate ran a little bit too, So great showing for those guys. Great for Morgan Schultz to go undefeated today, just like Colin Stiefer. It was good.
And it looks like we've got a top 2 women coming up. I think that's, again, because Marissa and Shai weren't pre-registered on the list necessarily, but I think we may have our top 2 or 2 of the top women's teams here.
Mm-hmm. So Barong and Duncan, that was third. Yeah, they finished third.
I think they were the team wearing yellow. They were just a little bit behind the second place team. So again, the actual number 2, not here on the list, but Karen Guidry and Amber Tate, a 31:01. Again, that would have been a top 10 time last year. They themselves, a world championship podium team. I think look for them throughout the course of this season to be competing and maybe eyeing another run at a championship podium later on.
Yeah, prepare for a good year, guys. 2024 is going to be phenomenal. It's so exciting that I yell every day about it on the rooftop because I don't have a voice, right? I'm just hoping these allergies go away quick and it's not as bad next time. But 2024, hold on to your seatbelt. It's going to be a great year. Prepare for world records to be broken, new potential world champions, new names out there in the sport, which I think is great for us, and returning names to just cement their legacy even more.
Absolutely. So I think it's about time for us to sign off, especially so Luke can have some tea or something to get his voice back. But it's been a great morning, as we said here, bringing all the DEKA FIT action to you live from Knoxville. Want to remind you this live race coverage of the 2024 DEKA FIT Series has been a presentation of DEKA and the OCR Report. Thank you for watching, and a special shout out to Yancey Culp and the team at DEKA. You can find race results for today's race eventually at the OCR Report Instagram, at the OCR Report. Be sure to subscribe to the OCR Report YouTube channel, where you can support live streams like this for less than $5 a month by becoming a member of the OCR Report through Patreon. Sign up today and support the sport we love. Again, for Corey, Shan, the rest of our rabbits, for Jason Dupree on site in Knoxville, all the behind-the-scenes action with the camera switching and the graphics, and of course, for Luke Halterman here on the mics, I have been Xander Keene. Thanks again for tuning in, and I believe next week we'll be bringing you here on the OCR Report coverage of the kickoff of the Mexican National Series for Spartan Race, and of course, a lot of DEKA FIT action still to come throughout the course of the year. So once again, thank you for tuning in to DEKA FIT action here on the OCR Report.
106.